Orgasmic enlightenment, where the sexual and spiritual come together. I'm Kim Anami, and I'm a holistic sex and relationship coach and a vaginal weightlifter. In this show, we explore all things intimate. I believe that our sexual energy is life force, creative energy, and we can use it to shape our worlds, strengthen our relationships, and self-actualize. I blend the most avant-garde information from neuroscience, ancient sexual practices like Tantra and Taoism, to renegade wellness modalities to show you how to create gourmet sex in your lives. Come one, come all. 180 days of sex. Well-fucked all-stars Alexis and Mitchell made 2023 their year of Anami. They have implemented pretty much every element of my philosophy and teachings into their lives and bed. Then they took it to the next level, Anami-style, by committing to 6 months of daily sex. As they say, it started as a 180-day pact, and now it's just a way of living. Before you protest, yes, they have children, 3 of them. And yet they still have sex every single day, usually twice a day, with multi-hour sex sessions and the occasional quickie of 45 minutes. In this episode, we will talk about how did they manage and what does it even look like to have 180 days of sex with 3 children, fucking your reality into existence and creating financial abundance and career advancement via your bed, 36 orgasms a day times 180 days, when semen retention becomes essential for sexual growth, orgasm telepathy, Sunday sessions, hour-long lingam and yoni massage every week, anal orgasms and anal enlightenment, foregoing alcohol and TV in pursuit of gourmet sex, women testing men, and on morning sex, you can't fuck the world if you don't fuck in the morning. Well fucked all-stars. Okay, welcome Alexis and Mitchell. Well fucked couple. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
You got your well fucked couple trophies displayed someplace in the room,
right.
In the bedroom?
We need to put it up on the wall somewhere.
Yeah. I actually made some trophies. I was going to give them out to the Fukume Awards of the year, where I got one of my dildos. Went to this trophy store and I bought a trophy, like a sports kind of trophy, and then I had the dildos, 2 dildos on either side melded, and then I had it engraved like Fukume Award winner 2022. I didn't end up doing it, but I could do it either way, right? Could be the Fukume Awards of the year and then the Well Fucked Couple Awards of the year.
Yeah, that's funny because we were talking earlier and he was like, one thing I realized from this is just how many people have Fukume.
Most of the world.
So many people say that, especially couples, because now that you have this common language to describe being well fucked and being underfucked, and you know the source of most people's maladies, their bad moods, their road rage is being underfucked, and you can call it out. You're like, well, that person clearly has Fukume or Mukme or whatever we want to call it for men, but you can spot it now so easily. And you're right, most people have it. Most people are operating at that underfucked deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
But not you guys. So tell us how it all came to be. So one of the things that I love as such a great example of your commitment and dedication to really up-leveling your relationship is that you committed to a sex everyday pact for 180 days. So tell us where you were, where you've come to, and then what kind of transformations you saw within that 6-month incredible transformational commitment.
Yeah. So, as we talked about before, I started in VKF, and when I was in VKF, I hit a point where I realized that in order for things to go like deeper and further, and between us especially because we were having more sex and I was kind of bringing him into the things that I was working on, that it would be best for us to work on it together. So one morning he got home from the gym and I was sitting at the kitchen counter and he's like, oh no, there's a big conversation coming here. And that was when I was just kind of really straight up with him about like, you know, where I felt like we were sexually and what I thought was possible for us, because I had been following you for years at that point. You know, there was such transformation during VKF, and he knew I was doing it and we had conversations about it. But that day was the day he was like, all right, well, because it was towards the end of VKF, he's like, okay, I'll do CCT. And it was like the most exciting thing ever, because for us, you know, we had more sex than a lot of people you talk to, but it was definitely junk food sex. And we still fought about sex a lot. Like it was still something that was like a point of contention for us. Whether I wanted it and he didn't, or he wanted it and I didn't, and just kind of like this infrequency thing that was going on. And it's crazy because, you know, it used to be like a chore. It's like, okay, we did all these other things today. Now we got to check the box for tonight. And now it's like, should we have sex 3 or 5 times? Like, how many times can we squeeze in? Like, he's about to have off work the next 3 days, and we're like, how many times can we do this tomorrow?
And just so people know, when you say 3 to 5 times a day, how many children do you have?
3.
And do they go to school or do you homeschool?
We homeschool, and our 2 older kids are in a bunch of sports, and we coach their sports too. So our days start at 4:30 and end whenever we're done for the night. So definitely busy schedule.
So could you paint a picture then of how, because people will be wanting to know, how do you make the time? Like, well, a keyword is make the time, right? But what's an example of how then you might carve out in a day, given your other responsibilities, for you to be able to have sex 3 times in a day? What might that look like?
I mean, it's not like a set schedule, because it has to be a set schedule, but you know, given all the responsibilities and activities, it's like, well, this is the available time. So, you know, we typically get up really early and go to the gym, and then I have about an hour before I have to go to work. So every morning when we get home from the gym, we do it in the morning.
And the gym's kind of like a little foreplay too, because, you know, we're like eye fucking each other from across the room. So we're all ramped up by the time we get home.
We're sending dirty texts.
Yeah.
You finish your squats and you've got this like sexy ass photo in the like selfie and your phone coming up. I love it.
Basically. And then, you know, I don't normally get home. Well, a lot of times I got to leave work early, and then we got practice with the kids or multiple practices. So we may not get home, you know, till close to 8. And then we got to feed them and get them down. And then once we get them down, then that's kind of our time again to do that. So, you know, typically during the week, I mean, it's a solid at least twice a day. And then the weekend is just kind of like whenever. I think yesterday she was like, how many times for tomorrow? And she was like, there's no reason we can't do 6.
I was like, you know, we could like, you know, these little windows here and there, we could just like fit it in. But it's funny because the morning thing, that was even, like when we made our sex pact and we made like our schedules and stuff like that, the morning sex wasn't ever planned to be a thing. You know, we had our evening sex date scheduled out, and it was, you know, get the kids down, get them down by 8 o'clock so that we can get right into, you know, our time together. And the morning thing just kind of happened. Like, it was like after like a few months, we were like, we are having sex every morning, because it was just like spontaneous and happening around the same time. But I think the big thing, especially with the evenings, is there's like, we don't do anything else to fill that time, right? It's not like before we'd watch shows or we would be on our phone for a little bit just to like decompress. we'd be on our phones right next to each other, and and then we'd end up doing that, whether it was watching a show together or, you know, whatever, quote unquote, decompressing on the phone. And then it'd be 9 o'clock out of nowhere and we'd both be half dead. And, you know, the sex wouldn't be what it is now. And it's funny because I told him at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I'm listening to all these podcasts and these people are having sex for like 2 hours a night and stuff. And he's like, that sounds like impossible. He's like, I'm so tired right now. I couldn't imagine having sex for 2 hours. But it's because at the time it was like this like thing that required effort instead of something that was like giving us something back, you know?
Yeah, I mean, after the gym and that, I mean, I feel like I start the day better than anybody.
Yes, with the proverbial bang. Yeah, like better than coffee. Yeah, meditation all combined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel the energy just flowing through.
And I love what you said about the evenings, because I think I even noticed for myself, I'm a really early riser, and then I have a point in the evening where if I start doing something like looking at my phone, I can drain my energy really fast. But if I keep active and engaged, my energy will stay up. But if you're not, you know, I can see how people could rationalize, oh, they're looking at their phone, an hour later they're both tired and, you know, ready for bed, or too tired to have sex. But you've inserted that discipline and that habit of, okay, kids are to bed, we're in it, you know, we're on, it's on, baby, you know, shut the door, close off, here we go. And, you know, I think so much of it comes down to that discipline and commitment, right? Is that you have to reframe your mindset. And like you said, and something I'm always driving home with people, is to think about your sex life as something that gives you energy and recharges you. And if you have that old stale idea that, oh, okay, I don't have the energy to have sex, like, oh, I'm already so tired. And you might be, but if you know that and you're having sex in a way that, which is the Anami-style way of having sex, is that if you're not feeling energized after sex, you're doing it wrong, then you know that you go to plug in and recharge with each other. And you have that imprinted in you. Like I say to people, you ought to feel like you can go to the gym after you have sex. Then you've revved up your energy, you've revitalized yourselves, you've energized yourselves, and you feel incredible and blissed out. That is how we're meant to feel after having sex. And anything other than that is a diversion off the path of what sex is meant to be. So I love that you've created that whole reframe.
Yeah. And there's been times even where, like, you know, we started like a lingam or something like that. And like it started out and I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. This is going to be pretty mediocre. Maybe we could cut it off at 45 minutes. And then those nights will be like our most like mind blowing nights that just kind of like hit us out of nowhere, because once the energy starts moving and we start getting into it and like reconnecting after the whole day, because, you know, we are separated all day. After we have sex in the morning, he's at work all day. I'm homeschooling the kids. We're running them over to different sports, coaching different things. So that is really our time to plug back in and kind of like reground, you know, like reset from all of the things.
Yeah, I would say like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do connection dates. And I would say after the connection dates, we normally have we always have great sex, but that's always even better. Like when there's a deep connection or a deep connection date, the sex that follows is always pretty mind-blowing.
Always top notch.
Pretty epic.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people who ask, well, like, what about the times that you're just not into it and you don't want to force it and stuff like that? And I'm like, have like a 20-minute connection date first, and it'll flow. Like, that's really what's worked for us. Like, and that's one thing that's never wavered the whole time, is when we have a good connection date, every session after that is just epic and could go on forever. Like even the stamina is better, erection's better, orgasms are bigger, everything's just way more intense.
That's a great point. And for anyone who may not know the Anami lingo, a connection date is what I refer to as a date that you set with your partner, and it's all about clearing the glass. It's talking, communicating, getting things off of your chest, out of the ethers that may be lingering, and clearing that space. And like they've said, often, most of the time, if not all the time, after having a real clearing space conversation, people can't keep their hands off each other. And like you're saying, even leads to a deeper sex state and more powerful sex state. And how I always say the body is the barometer, right? Like if a couple has an argument at breakfast time and let's say they don't really resolve it, they try to have sex at night because they feel like the obligatory, we should have sex. And then maybe he's not very hard or he comes very quickly. She doesn't get wet, she doesn't orgasm, and they don't connect it. Where you're showing examples of the opposite is that when you do clear those things, then the body is even more responsive and more powerful and a channel for the deep desire and love that you have for each other because you've opened up the heart, which then reflects in an opened up body.
Yeah. And what's crazy too is like he'll even, and it's wild because like when we're on a really good streak of like really good connection dates and, you know, staying connected throughout the day as much as we can and whatnot, he physically looks different to me. Like when I look at him, like he looks like taller and like, you know, like more solid and his stuff. And like, I know he's not actually changing, but like for the first few times I was like, am I going a little crazy? But no, it's legitimate. Like he looks different to me. And it's definitely reflected in the sex. I mean, there's been definite, there was definite growth that happened during CCT. There was for sure growth, both width, length, curvature. I mean, there was growth all around. And it's funny because we refer to it as like the 100% cock, you know?
100% cock? How do you mean that?
Yeah, the 100% cock. Because there's like times where you could come in at like 70, maybe 80%. But when you hit that 100%, I mean, there's nothing like it. Like you can't not. There was this one session we had, and after he was like, you know, how do you feel? And I was like I would do anything for you. I was like, so I was digmatized. I mean, I was just played. It was done. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a reflection of like the growth that we went through and how much closer we've been and how much more he stepped up in our relationship throughout our journey.
I love that example because I talk about that occupying our body parts, right? And when we're fully inhabiting our sexual energy and our body parts, we get that showing up. Men's cocks grow, they become solidified, our vaginas become more luscious and sumptuous, you know, our women's breasts grow, they even create facelifts because all of their energy is literally getting uplifted. So I love hearing these physical examples of what's happening energetically.
Definitely better than Netflix.
Right.
You'll hear people at work the next day, you know, would you watch last night? And like, I didn't watch anything.
You're like, I watched my gorgeous wife's ass up in the air for 2 hours straight while I was fucking her doggy style and she was having life-changing orgasms. That's what I watched.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is like people almost don't believe it. Like he'll tell people at work, you know, about the frequency and stuff, and they're like, well, you know, most married couples don't do that. That's not normal, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, maybe not for you, you know, but it's definitely normalized in this household. And you know, like I said, we used to fight about sex a lot. And it was because like, I always had a really high sex drive, right? You know, the quintessential, like, insatiable thing. And in my experience in life, it's like most men say they want someone who wants sex all the time until they get it, and then they can't keep up.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden it's this big ego hit, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And there was one point in CCT, probably like maybe like 5 weeks in, where retention became a big topic in the calls. And, you know, he was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but everything else has worked so far, so I'm going to try it. And that, I mean, the retention alone has just...
Game changer.
Game changer. Foundation, game changer. We couldn't do this without it. I mean, I couldn't imagine.
I've tried to explain that to people, and they'll basically, like, make fun of you, like you have blue balls or... like that's just a crazy concept. And I'm just like, you fuck like what, once, twice a month?
We meet your yearly quota in a week.
Keep doing it your way.
But it makes so much sense now.
So what was it before? So you're saying retention was a key component for you. So presumably that's Mitchell being able to last longer and have control over whether he's orgasming or not. And so where were you with that? And where are you now? And what has that allowed? What has that facilitated the blossoming of in your relationship? So before, after, and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I guess before, I guess it was like everybody else. It was probably anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, and I came every time, and that was it. And
came as in ejaculated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, went to sleep.
Yeah,
And then, with the retention, it's, you can, like, the stamina thing is a huge thing with it. But then just the frequency, like being able just to, any time there's that opening, or window in the day to be able to do something, it's just like almost instant, 100% ready to go. And there's no way it would be like that not doing it that way. And I was a little, because it's such a big change, I think, especially for a man to not do that, because it's like your whole life you're almost conditioned like this is what you do, and then when that happens, it's over. So kind of retraining your mind and your body, anything new can be scary. But so I was a little, I wanted to do it because I was like everything you said's worked. So I was like, I guess I got to try it for that. But part of me inside was like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I can do this. And then, after even just like, the first 3 days, 4 days, it was noticeably different, just, energetically, and then, maybe 70% to 100%. So,
yeah,
well, and then, being able to get to the cervicals, there's some of the deeper orgasms, like if you're not at that high threshold and have the stamina to keep going, long enough, that's never going to happen. Like, it's just never going to happen. So, a lot of it had to do with that too. Like, I wanted to be able to do that for her too. And just like, and it's hard to explain to someone that hasn't done it, just like how you feel. You talk about it in some of your podcasts, and then, some of your courses, but it's like being on drugs. You're high. Like, it's a full body high. Like, so sometimes you can't feel your body, or you just have so much energy, but it's amazing. So. Yeah.
And he definitely like feels more, like, it's hard to explain it. Like, energetically, he feels more solid since practicing semen retention. So you can tell, like, when he's gone longer periods of time, it's just like, it feels like he can, like, I don't know, like, hold things better. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. It's like, even like during the sex, like, it's easier to let go because he's got it. I don't have to worry about things because I know that he's solid.
Yeah. And that's, go on.
I was just going to say, once you get I don't know, I kind of have like little checkpoints. Like, the first 4 days is like something, the first week is something, like 10, 14 is something, 3 weeks. But, like a lot of the stuff you talk about being able to breathe easy and relax and not tense your body up, after you've been doing that, you don't have to worry about anything not working 100% once you've been practicing that. So it makes a lot of the other things easier that you talk about too.
Yeah, what you were saying, if a man, I always say the key sexual skill for men to develop is stamina. And by develop, I mean to have full control over when and if they come. And ultimately, they could be aiming for the best of all possible worlds, which is to learn to orgasm without ejaculation. So they're essentially, when you say retention, they're retaining their semen, not having that energy drain, which is essential for women to reach the life-changing, deeper vaginal orgasms. They need sustained penetration and at an intense level so that you can be at a real high threshold of sexual ecstasy and be able to keep going. Because if you can't and you bail out, it's game over for one, but also then it creates this energy of she can't trust you to open up and really surrender and go into these deep places because you could just bail at a moment's notice and then it's all done, right? And that pattern is a typical pattern in most relationships, even if a couple isn't consciously aware of it, right? And they don't even know how to identify it. It'll just start manifesting in a more bitter, critical, naggy, underfucked woman who then begins to avoid sex because she's not getting her needs met, but she's just, there doesn't seem to be a way out in terms of that improving. And she doesn't know, or they both don't know, the deeper life-changing pleasures of the vaginal orgasms and why it is so important to be having marathon sex and longer sex dates. And, I always laugh because in media, movies, TV, the average sexual encounter, which, look, I get because of the brevity of the medium, is 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. I mean, I guess it would be nice if there were things they could do to make it look as though some hours went by, but often the encounters really are like two dogs on the street having sex, for minutes, and then that's it, or if even that, right? And that's it. Yeah. And that's like the model that we all get given for what a sexual encounter looks like. And that is reflected statistically, where 75% of men ejaculate within 3 minutes of penetration. So that means that 75% of women are underfucked, right? And I'd say the number's even higher because most women are needing, the next segment is probably 95% of men come within 5 minutes, right? So we're talking about, very few couples are having sex of any kind of substance or length.
Yeah, and that was a big thing that I had to overcome when we started doing this, was this, I didn't even fully realize I had it, but just from sexual experiences for forever, it's I take too long to orgasm and they're going to bail before this happens. And there was points
and so by take too long, you're I take 6 minutes or longer.
20 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, not 3 hours.
It doesn't take that long now.
Yeah.
We've definitely got those neural pathways all going. But there were times early on where we'd be having a sex session with toys or whatever we were doing. And I couldn't fully relax because in my mind I was oh, if I let myself get close and then he stops, I'm going to be really frustrated, right? If his forearms burn out or he gets bored with it or whatever it is. And he had to talk me through it, early on, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a great orgasm. Everything's fine. I've got it. And then I'd be worried about oh, maybe this has been going on for so long. Maybe I should tell him to stop and then let's do something else. And I would try to do that sometimes. I would try to be oh, let's put the toys away and do this. And he's no, we're getting this done. This is going to happen first. And it took doing that for a little bit for us to for me to be able to relax and be I'm not going to be left hanging in this situation. And then it got to the point where I was he's going to be able to talk me into an orgasm. It's just going to be the words, because that was so big for us too. I think you talked about it in the last podcast too, was when you're trying to have these deeper sessions and the deeper intimacy and the orgasms, you come up to a precipice and then you have to choose to keep going. Right. And then I would come up to that and freak out a little bit, and then he'd talk me down and we'd keep going. And that was what we had to do for a while. And it just really built a really, I don't know, even him just being able to sense that I was coming up on that and that that's what was happening, that I needed him to to ground me and settle things was just like really transformative for our relationship.
I love that. And, when you mentioned that precipice, to clarify for people, it's like you get to this point with the deeper vaginal orgasms where it feels like you need to jump off of a cliff, like you need to totally surrender, let go of all control, be in full raw vulnerability to pass, to pass through this portal into these deeper transcendent orgasms. And many women will just contract, like instinctively contract and pull back from that precipice. And so I talk about needing to consciously jump over it and jump through it. And I love that part of your process was recognizing that and then collectively working together to build that trust and courage to be able to go through.
And, just even on a small thing before that, I think literally, like we were talking about earlier, not watching TV, not being on your phone, that totally disassociates you, from yourself and from each other too. So, even if someone did that for like an hour, I feel like it would take way longer and it would be way harder to get into that type of space. So, I mean, it's not like we were like, hey, we're never going to watch TV again, but like, we really just don't want to.
We have better things to do.
There's nothing on TV better than that. But anyway, there's so many things people do all day just to like numb out and disassociate. So anyway, I just feel like I should say that.
Yeah, and that was big for us too. I mean, there was a point with like the holidays and stuff, during like that season this last year after we went through all the courses where we kind of like some old habits were coming up, right? Some old patterns were coming up of like dissociation or disconnection. And we knew, like you could tell we were still, having sex, trying to have our connection dates, but you could tell that like it was different, right? It wasn't like CCT level connection and stuff like that. And I think that what was really, really interesting about all that for us was, we went through that, everything came to a head. There ended up being like a few big arguments. And it was like after the arguments happened and things settled, I think because we tried to stay connected during it. We tried to stick to our connection dates. We were still having sex and we just knew what it felt like to be in that space together. We had a standard to get back to. So it was almost like after we got through that, it's almost like we hit like a new level now. Right. It was almost like our connection dates are deeper now. Like we can even be like more radically honest with each other because we're being more honest with ourselves about things that we didn't recognize in ourselves before. So it's like, even when things aren't all like puppy dogs and rainbows and all the like the good stuff, it still only went on for like a few weeks and we came out of it way closer than we even were when we were in CCT because we had the tools and the frame of reference and we knew how to get there. We just had to do it,
Right. Yeah.
Well, I even think that, even like you use for your name, like Anami, like, you always got to keep leveling up. Well, it just kind of illustrates and highlights the importance of, just because you get somewhere, if you don't stay true to the work and doing the work, like there will be a drop off. And it just illustrates the importance of like just always staying in that and just, like just leveling up, get deeper, get better, just with your, intrapersonally and interpersonally. So
I love that.
I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
sorry. Sorry.
You go ahead.
But yeah, even like the lingam massages and the yoni massages and stuff, like I know because we were having a lot of fun in like the CCT community and talking to everybody and stuff while we were in it. And there were a lot of times where people were like, we couldn't do it because of this, we couldn't do it because of that. And I mean, we have done those, no matter what, that has been religious. I mean, we have been religious with that. And our yoni massage and our lingam massage on schedule. If we miss it, we make up for it. Like there has been no missing with that. It has happened the whole time. And I think just having like like a handful of things that are happening consistently the whole time to keep you on track, you can only veer off so much. You know what I mean?
So does that mean that you have a certain schedule, like a quota of yoni and lingam massages that you do every week, no matter what?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's an hour each time.
Every Sunday night.
Every Sunday night.
Every Sunday night. And is that particular tool, explain to me why that tool specifically has been so important for you guys in terms of connection and whatever else it's doing for you.
I mean, it's the consistency helps, and I mean, she's really. I mean, this sounds, I don't know. I've always considered her like way more woo-woo than me, especially a few years ago. But like, she's real good about, finding spots and moving energy around my body that needs it, and like I'll feel better. Like, I mean, it just makes me feel better, and it's, I don't know, just the build up, especially once she gets to the cock part, the build up of that, going into sex or making her squirt, several times, before sex even starts. I mean, it's just like, I mean, I don't know, it's just the oven's hot.
Well, and it's nice too, because it's like a set time where like one person's giving and the other person's receiving. Like, that's just 100% what's happening. One person's 100% giving and the other person can completely let go and 100% receive. And it's crazy because like you're always excited when it's, your turn, right? But it's also like even just like being the giver, being able to give that attention and move that around. And that's really enjoyable too, right? So I think it helps both of us get to a point where we're like being able to consistently have an hour where you can just completely relax and let go and receive from the other person. I think it just kind of feeds into the other ways that we're giving, receiving, sexually and non-sexually.
And even physically, I mean, especially if a guy is circumcised, I mean, I don't think, you don't know what you don't know, but, you definitely have, some numb spots, if you've been circumcised. So really going through CCT and, SMM too, I mean, just, that helped a lot with my sensitivity.
Yeah, it's like how you talk about like vaginas going numb. Like he had a similar issue and I didn't even know, right? I didn't even know he had this, and we didn't even realize the full extent of it until we started doing the lingam massages. And it was like, oh, like I don't feel things here. I don't feel things there. And through doing the lingam massages and, the retention and everything else, I mean, the sensitivity has just gone way up for both of us.
That's amazing to hear. And I love too, with the ritual and commitment to doing the regular yoni lingam massage, for some people, receiving is really difficult, right? They find it easier to actually be a giver. And so to be almost held down and timed and forced to receive, some people might be like, what? That's not hard for me. But there are people who find that very difficult and who become almost the primary givers, whether it's men or women, because they're not comfortable receiving. And that could be for a number of different reasons, from self-worth to past trauma, because when you receive like that, you really have to go inward and be present with your body, present with sensations, present with potential emotional reactions that might come out of you. They're profoundly healing, right? And I think one of the best ways to really love and adore your partner, and I always say our genitals really are the essence of who we are. And when you're truly adoring that part of your partner, you're lighting them up. You're seeing them in the deepest, most possible way that they can be seen. And there is something so profoundly, cataclysmically nurturing and healing about that. So I love that that's part of your repertoire.
Yeah. And that's one of the things too, is like being able to do this work together and being able to like use sex and these sexual acts to like move things and work through things like emotionally is just insane. Like it was a few weeks ago maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And, I was having a hard time, dealing with something like that whole week. And he was like, we need to have anal. And I was like, I'm like, you're just trying to get that. I'm like, we don't have time for that this week. We're not going to do it. And he's like, no, I think we really need to do it.
And let me give a little background here, because I talk about it in the salons as like bringing out the big guns. When you've got something so this isn't, I'm reinforcing Mitchell's perspective here, that it's not just like, oh, here's a good chance to get anal. It's like, no, Kim's advice would be that when things feel really stuck, like a stick up the ass kind of thing, right? Is that you go to this place of our hidden shit and you stir it up and you fuck it out of you. So anyway, carry on.
Yeah. And it was crazy because like we had, obviously since doing CCT, we had done anal here and there. And I, during anal, have had like big G-spot squirting orgasms, right? And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. This is cool. Like we're super into it. And it does get really deep, things. I always feel a million times better and lighter after. But this particular time, like I said, all week he was like, you need this. And I'm like, no, I don't. And then, then we decided to do it that weekend. And I had my first anal-gasm. And like, I knew, obviously, like you talk about them existing. So I knew it exists, but it's kind of like, you don't know until it happens. And it happened. And it was like, it was insane. It went on for like 10 minutes. Like he got up, went to the bathroom, came back, and I was like, I'm still having an orgasm right now. Like my whole body is radiating like right now. Like, this is amazing. But it was crazy because, after that whole issue that I had been working on that week, it was like, what issue? Nothing to see here. So he was definitely right.
Very good prescription via Mitchell. Great assessment and diagnosis of the treatment.
Thank you. Well, my initials are MD, so.
Well earned. So we have such a great picture of where you are and the flow you're in, which I love. Give us a bit of a contrast of where you were before. Like I know you were having really a lot shorter sex sessions. You were having vibrator, clitoral orgasms. You just described a very beautiful transcendent analgasm, but describe, more about the length of your sex dates and the types of orgasms you're having. Let's give it a little more fleshed out detail of some of those transitions and changes.
Yeah. Yeah, go.
Honestly, at the time, especially several years ago, we were drinking every night. So, we were staying up, just kind of doing that. And, that's totally disassociating in itself. And, it'd probably be, like to a normal person or a normal couple, like 2 to 4 times a week might be like, oh, that's, good week, whatever. But it would just be, it'd just be kind of dissociated, much quicker, definitely not as intimate. Definitely no retention or anything like that. And then, no type of deep orgasms like G-spot, A-spot, any of the cervicals or anything like that. She's had one from us kissing.
I've had a few from us kissing.
Just the level of connection. It's not even comparable. It's funny because it's like this has only been going on for like I guess 2 months short of a year or almost, so it's not even quite a full year yet. And it's like we look back at that and we're like, I can't believe that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we're like, thank God we figured this out in our 30s. Like, I feel so bad for people that never find this. It's never too late, but I'm glad we found it much earlier in our relationship than, much later. So, I think I told you at the end of CCT on the phone, I wish I could, send you a gift or do something. So I hope my endorsement of your work is gift enough. But it's been, honestly, everything you've done, it's transformed like us personally and our entire relationship. So, and I feel like too, a lot of people always think they know, Like, they know what to do. And for me especially, I mean, I'm kind of type A. I'm in sales. Like, I like to, like, I trust myself hard. So to kind of just let go and, trust into like what you were saying and what you were doing, that was a big obstacle for me. Maybe it's a big obstacle for others too, but, yeah, anybody listening, listen to Kim.
It worked. But yeah, we were also, I mean, even when we were having sex, we were not present during it. Like, there was no, I mean, just the level of lubrication, way lower. Obviously, no G-spot, no vaginal orgasms whatsoever. We were both kind of like distracted. It's like, the idea, because, like the eye contact during sex, just the idea of doing that, I was like, ugh. That's way too, like, woo, like
intimate.
Like,
that's really too intimate for sex.
That's way too much for me. And now it's just like such a normal thing for us. And it's interesting because there was this one session where, like, I don't know, there had recently been a conversation about it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make it a point to, like, make eye contact this session. And I realized I was struggling with it. Like, I'd do it for a second, and then I'd look away, and I'd do it, and then I'd look away, and then I forced myself. I was like, we're not going to do this. We're going to maintain eye contact. And as soon as I made the decision, I had this giant orgasm, right? As soon as I made the decision to do that, and we were, we were there and we were together like that, I had that giant orgasm. But yeah, I mean, even like, okay, like BDSM stuff, right? So we had played with that before in a very unconscious way, right? We both knew, like, oh, this is interesting. We kind of like want to dip into this stuff, and we played with it, and it kind of like, it was okay, but it was not, all this, whatever we had hyped it up in our head that it was going to be like that. And then we put that aside for years. And back during CCT, we were like, oh, we're gonna pick this back up again. And
go ahead.
And it's been great. It has just been, and it's been amazing to like see him like be in that role and like fill that role, and to be able to surrender in that way, because I can be the way he put it when we were talking about at the beginning of CCT was an intimidating little lady. He said, he's like, you're an intimidating little lady, right? So I can be very like, whatever, intense. And that's kind of like, regardless of what's going on with us outside of the bedroom, like that's the one place where that's not happening, right? Like he's, kind of like taking on that leading role, and, I'm in like that full surrender. And we've played with things that like things as in like certain like different kinks and stuff like that like most people probably don't even know they're into. And it's like every time we go like one step further, we're like, oh, maybe this will be the precipice, and then we do it, and then it turns out really well, and we're like, nope, we could still go further with this. And it's even translated like into our life. Like we do like fun things, like, like a list of things that like I need to get done every day to like take care of myself, and it turns into like this like reward system. And it's been, I don't know, it's been amazing. And like I said, we tried this before. Like we already had all the equipment and whatnot,
all the gear.
Yeah, we had all the gear from years ago, but it wasn't right? It wasn't like this. And it's because we were like playing a role, and it's like now we're like, I don't know.
Well, one of the big things, with you is, polarity. So, polarity, we had good polarity in most other levels, breadwinner, I go to the gym all the time, still play sports. Anyway, like those type of things, I pretty easy at. And then, her, taking care of the kids, homeschooling, taking care of the house. But like in the bedroom, like especially with BDSM, that was like one thing, I don't know, it was almost like reversed. It was easier for her to do it that way than me that way. But so anyway, I guess what you've helped with is like the polarity, like even in that aspect. So like that's totally changed for me. So I mean, I like before, like I'm talking about like before, I wasn't able to be like that, but the polarity shift with that, especially with BDSM, I mean it's night and day, transformed. So
When you say you weren't able to be like that, how do you mean? Like, do you mean to be extra dominant or
extra dominant? Like I'm alpha with everything, but wasn't like super alpha with the BDSM before, but now alpha.
Slows down.
So what I hear too is, when I talk about BDSM, I would say it's conscious BDSM. And really at the heart of it are the archetypal roles of, you said the word polarity, of feminine energy, of surrender and submission, and masculine energy of dominance and taking control. And that through conscious BDSM play is an incredible way to exaggerate these polarities and explore these energies more deeply, get more comfortable in inhabiting them and, existing in them. So I love that it was that for you, because I think that happens for most people. They have a really kind of superficial understanding of what BDSM is and they go about it, but without that deeper heart and intention in it, it's just not that effective or fun.
Yes, I mean, and I'm over the moon, with the way that things have gone with that, because, it was something that I wanted for a long time. And I knew I had like a desire for that type of play. And I knew that he had a really hard time doing it. And there was even a point where I was like, oh my God, what if we're not compatible, right? And I mean, we're already married, right? We had already been together forever. And I was like, what if this is something that's never going to be able to happen? And I know it's something I really want. And, I mean, I think that,
I was gonna say, I think it was hard before, just a lot of it, like with my job, just making decisions all day, and and just kind of wanting to like relax and not kick it into that gear type deal. I don't know if that makes sense, but now, I mean, I use that as a means and a method to help me with other things in my life like that. Like I can like take that energy and like almost protrude that alpha and that dominance into other areas, and it just kind of leaks in to other areas of my life. So it's almost like an opposite effect.
Right. And I think, if it's not already obvious, that Alexis has a really strong female, powerful energy, and a woman in that position needs her man to be able to rise up and overtake her at times, right? Mm-hmm. To really like hold, if she's coming in at a 10, he needs to come in at a 15 at times and hold her down and really, in a way, soothe and settle and fuck some of that stuff out of her in the best possible way, right? So when you talk about craving that, I understand that. And I think all strong women feel that, and they need a man to be able to rise up and take control in a really dominant way at times, and especially at times in the bedroom, to really lead and occupy that strength and power. So I'm glad that has been useful for you.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny because one of the things that you talk about a lot is like, like women testing men, like testing them and doing these things. And I never realized that that's what I was doing, like over time. Like there's all these incidences that I can see now where I was like testing, like how solid are you going to break? Are you going to snap? Are you going to, is this, are you going to not be solid in this? And, it's funny because you can even see that reflected in like some of our sex sessions. Like there was this one session we were having that I remember, and I don't know, there was some other stuff going on, and it was like the middle of the day, and I was like, okay, we're going to do this, but we'll just do it for like a few minutes and then we'll like dip back in later. So, the session started and I was like, oh, I'm going to push him by doing stuff that like I know he really likes, and make it like hard for him to retain, and he's going to have to tap out. So I was doing it. I was laying it on thick, right? I was doing all the things. And he looked at me and he's like, he knew. He was like, you're messing with me right now. Like you're testing me right now. And he like doubled down, and that turned into one of the most epic sessions, because it was like, okay, like if you're gonna push me, like, you know, I'm doubling down, and it was great.
And how did that feel for you? I can see the smile on your face. Well, both of you, Alexis and Mitchell, how did that feel?
It always feels good to pass a good test from a female. Always feels good. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I mean, I guess it was, you know, something before that, yeah, that like that just wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. Like it would have ended some weird way, or I don't know. It definitely wouldn't have ended in ecstasy. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's like every time that happens, it's like I don't know. Like I said earlier, it's like things just feel more solid, and he just feels more solid, and I can relax more and then open up more, because, you know, another thing, like vulnerability was a huge block for me, and like the radical honesty thing, that was, oh my gosh, that was huge in the relationship, and it was huge for me because I could be radically honest about all types of things except for like when it required being super vulnerable about something. And for him, you know, he had, you know, as in like wanting to keep the peace, you know, like not being radically honest because of trying to keep the peace. And it created this sense of like feeling like I knew he wasn't being 100% with me all the time. And because I knew he wasn't being 100% with me, it's like, I don't know what you're lying about, but you're lying about something. And it could have been something stupid, right? It could have been something that he didn't like the dinner I cooked the night before, something completely stupid. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew there was something. And I feel like because of that, like I felt like I couldn't fully trust him and lean into him because like, I don't know what's going on in his head. Right? Like, you know, I could think things are one way, but they could be totally different because God knows what's going on in his head. And it's crazy because I didn't even realize that I had like that like low grade like worry until we started the radical honesty, right? Until we started that and it was gone. And once that was gone, it was like, oh, like I feel like I can trust everything he says right now. Like I feel like I can trust everything that comes out of him. And, you know, even like I said, even like stupid stuff, like I didn't like that dinner. I don't like that dress. Like, I don't care what it is. I want you to be 100%. I want to know. I want to know all the things, right? Because it's really calming for me. And I know there were a lot of people that talked about that in CCT and whatnot, especially with their, you know, like male partners, where they were like, oh, well, you know, if I do this, I'm going to hurt his feelings, or it's going to hurt his ego, or it's going to do this and it's going to do that. And it's like, he can feel something. Something's happening already. And I honestly, because I thought that for a while too, you know, before I came to him about CCT and whatnot. But it's almost like treating your partner like a child. You know, like they're a grown adult. Like they can, like you're assuming that they can't handle what you've got to say to them. And that's almost like insulting, right? It's almost disrespectful. It would be more respectful for you to be like, hey, this is how things are. What are we going to do about it? You know?
Well, and it's definitely easy to have things just snowball in your head too. You know, you can create, you know, whatever reality, good or bad, in your head, you know, about something. But you know, being able to be honest and talk it out. And, you know, maybe you thought something was one thing in your head, but then when you talked about it, you know, it was totally different type deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Clarity. And then there's something I call the lie of a lie. Like you were saying, Alexis, that when you think that you're protecting somebody, or it doesn't matter if you don't tell the whole truth, on some level, the other person already knows. And whether they just feel that as some kind of interference field, or that they can't trust you because they know you're holding something back, that's already creating interference in the relationship, right? And so by actually clearing the air in the way we talk about the connection dates, truth as being the greatest aphrodisiac, that it actually leads to more depth and connection and arousal and turn on. That, you know, I would rather know the truth about something and deal with it than feel this energy of trepidation. And to be honest, cowardice, right? That becomes woven into the fabric of the relationship as a tacit agreement of don't ask, don't tell, versus the liberation of fully just owning who you are and what you have to say and getting it out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it definitely has helped me have like more respect for him. Like him being radically honest about stuff. Like I definitely look at him differently. Like I think it was like SMM or something where there was a video on it, but it was like about them addressing issues too. Like a lot of the times women feel like they carry the emotional burden and that, if there's an issue, they have to bring it up, they have to address it, all of these things. And I didn't realize that I was doing that until he started doing it too, right? Till he started like kind of like carrying some of that weight too. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's just like relieving. I don't know. It's just like I'm lighter, because I'm not the only one doing this. And I can trust that if there's something going on with him, he's going to come to me and he's going to say something about it instead of it being like, oh, does he actually secretly hate me or something like that, whatever it is that people worry about. But one of the things that you had asked earlier, and I guess we never actually got to it, was about the sex sessions now compared to how they were before. And like we said, there were no vaginal orgasms. We were really disconnected. We weren't present. They were short sessions. We had to bust out the vibrator for clitoral orgasms. And now, like we've mentioned earlier, I mean, I have had G-spot squirting orgasms from us kissing. I've had, him just come home from work and, I'm always wearing a dress with underneath it because that is the Anami way. That is the only way to live. So open access, so coming home from work and, making him back to the kitchen in the corner really quick and stuff like that. But the orgasms, like, they built up over time. Like at first it could only happen, with toys, as in like the deep vaginal orgasms. And we were like, okay, that's normal, like G-spot orgasms happening with toys. And then it happened during sex, randomly, out of nowhere. We were like, oh, look, this is possible too. And then it started happening quicker. And now it's to the point where like, even if we just have like a 10-minute, 15-minute sex session in the morning, in between the gym and trying to get ready, I'm still having 3+ orgasms during that 10-minute sex session. Like it's almost like right away, she just gets one out of the way real quick and then keeps going with it. And then during our longer sessions, I mean, I can't
keep up.
Yeah. We literally can't. I mean, there was one point where we were trying to count and we knew that there was at least 3 dozen a day. And then we had to stop. We had to stop counting because it was just, you just couldn't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't keep counting. It was becoming too much to keep counting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we'd end and we'd be like, how many do you think that is? And it's like, honestly, I'm not even like fully with it right now. Like I couldn't even tell you. It's into oblivion. I could tell you that. There was this one time where like, I was like, and it was funny because you talk about being like really like mentally connected and stuff. And there was this one time where I had a thought and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is so good. I might pass out. I was like worried. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. And right after that, he goes, he's like, you're going to pass out from this. Like right after I had the thought, he said it. And I was like, we're definitely mind melting here. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely gotten to like,
all the sessions run together.
Yeah. It's just like, it's not like, oh, like we had sex this morning. That's 1. We had sex tonight. That's 2. It's like,
it's just a constant flow. So, I mean, honestly, it's hard to even recollect about everything because it's just ongoing. It's just ongoing all the time. It's like you talk about, like you just stay in that high state of simmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the simmers. It's funny because, he had to travel for work last week. And so he was gone for a few days. And it was like our first break of sex, since this whole thing happened, since we started doing this. And by like the third day, we were like, this is for the birds. We can't do this anymore. But then when he got back, it was so intense. It was like, oh, okay, maybe the break was good for us because we've been all over each other for a year.
Yeah.
Maybe it was good to have a few days to build that back up. But yeah, I mean, we're still having sex every day. That sex pact was big for us because it helped us get into the flow of things. But
I think it was good for building some trust with her and then confidence for myself.
Mm-hmm. That we could do it and stick with it. And, you know, there were definitely times at the beginning where it felt like, okay, we have to like get ourselves into this, right? But then it came to a point, probably, I don't even know when, it came to a point a couple months in where it's like, we're never going to stop this. You know, it started as a 180-day pact, and now it's just like this way of living and this thing, like, because I prefer it at night, he prefers it in the morning. And it's funny because it's like our night sessions feed into the morning sessions, and the morning sessions feed into the night sessions. And if we miss one, right, if we miss a morning session or a night session, we will feel the difference in how our day goes, in how our next session goes, right? Because it's not flowing as much.
You can't fuck the world if you don't fuck in the morning.
So yeah, I mean, our sessions are longer, the orgasms are deeper, the intimacy that's happening is really intense. You know, I know a lot of people have talked about like the crying and the laughing and like the big like emotional releases during sex, and I was really nervous about that happening because I was like, what if I start crying and then like he loses his erection because it's like, this isn't hot, you're blubbering in tears. But then, you know, it just happened, right? It just got so deep with these sessions that it just happened. And sometimes it was things getting out, and sometimes it was just so overwhelming, you know, like the connection and the energy that was like, it was just like the whatever, the love of it or the beauty of it or whatever was happening was so overwhelming that it came out. And none of my fears came to life. Like, you know, everything was good. It just made the connection stronger. But, you know, even just being able to do that and to open like that and release like that during our sessions is just really different. It's really different than it was for us before. It's like there was always something between us before, you know, whether it was one of us holding ourselves back or both of us holding each other back or, you know, stupid white lies or whatever it was, there was always something between us. Like now, especially during these deep sessions, like that's completely gone. And it's just, I mean, we could go on. There were some times where we had to tap out and be like, okay, it's like 11 o'clock. We have to get up at 4:30. We should probably stop. You know, this should probably be our stopping point. We've got to stop at some point. So
amazing. So if you had to summarize what this is all done for your outer lives, like you've given some pictures of this throughout, but you know, I'm always making the parallels for people between they have these radical shifts within the bedroom and then what happens outside of the bedroom as a result of that, because the average person makes no connection between the two, and it's usually in reverse. It's how that their dreary or non-existent sex life is sucking the rest of their life into the bedroom like a vortex and having a negative impact on everything that they touch. Whereas when you are using your relationship as the super power source, it is having a rejuvenating and turbo boosting effect on everything else in your life. So how would you summarize those changes that you've seen?
I think for me, it's kind of just easy just with work. I mean, I've gotten multiple raises the last year.
There's been like 3 raises and a good bonus all since we started doing this.
Wow.
So, and that's, you know, one of the things you talk about too, you know, financial gain comes from it too. And then honestly, trying less, but the inner, like, you know, to get more work, like trying less, but the energy, I don't know, I guess from the sex, like I don't have to try near as hard to bring in more. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. So I mean, just with work, I mean, I've noticed a huge difference with that. And And then, just energetically with myself, I feel like I've woken up a lot the last year, just in a lot of ways, into a lot of things. And so, I've changed so much the last year, definitely for the better. And it started with CCT, and then went to SMM, and then the past couple months we've been doing, some more, personal things with more growth, and it's just keep leveling up.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about the work thing is, part of the reason I brought him into the work was he's had a career goal his whole career, right? It's been this one goal the whole time. And that came up. And while I was in VKF, it came up like, hey, like, this is a possibility. You're in the running for this. And he told me about it. And I was like, oh, we have to fuck this into existence. I was like, we've got to make this happen. Like, we've got to get on this, right? And what's funny is, since, that happened and that conversation happened, everybody else who was in the running for the position is now gone from the company. And it has been more solidified that this is happening for him. So that's been really good. And there was even a point where, there was like a crossroads for him where he could have left and done something else, or stuck with this. And this happened when we were in CCT. And I think that, being more connected, being more aware, being more like confident in our ability to fuck things into existence, it helped lead our decision. And it definitely was the right decision that we made, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And then, as far as everything else with it, I've talked about this before, but, we live like a holistic life. We live, we're like the weird people in Alabama, we're like the people who like unschool our kids and like, don't
anti-allopathic.
Yeah. And, don't do all the pharmaceutical stuff, and like a family full of doctors and whatnot. And like, there were a lot of big decisions I had to make with kids this last year over different health things that were happening with them. And it was like, I could trust the medical community, or I could trust myself and see how it plays out. And, I think that through the connection and him being able to support me and be like, your intuition's always been right with the kids, we're going to do this. And us having this and this connection with, like, I don't know, with ourselves, with the world, with whatever, I was able to make the decisions that felt right to me, and basically tell everybody, like, if you don't like it, fuck you, they're not. and it's been the right decision. Everything panned out the way it was supposed to, so, or the best way it could have. So that was definitely huge for us. It was huge for me, because I do feel like I always have to be on the defense with everybody with how we choose to live.
Parenting.
Yeah, how we parent.
I think how we parent, it's helped a lot with parenting as well.
Yeah, we've definitely been different with the kids, especially with me, because like our oldest is 10 and she's our only girl. And so, she had just got to the point, even with like the bra thing, where like, bras were a thing, and it was like, hey, bras are the devil. Don't do it. So even just that, like being able to guide her in that, and, the fact that she's about to hit puberty and all of that stuff, like I feel like way more comfortable and confident being able to like raise them up to know these things now, to be able to go into it the right way. Because there was a point early on with all this work with us where we were like, I feel like we're completely relearning sex. Like, it's like we're virgins. Like, it's like we're learning all of this all over again. And there's going to be less that they're going to have to deal with and heal from because of, the things that we've managed to learn this last year.
For sure.
Amazing. So incredible to hear. I love all of these stories, and how committed you've been through this whole process is incredible. Is there anything else you'd like to add? You've covered a lot. I'll just check.
you got the one you wanted to throw in. I don't think so. I mean, like I said, anybody listening, I think especially guys, trying new things can be hard, especially, in this type of realm. But it's definitely worth just trying. I mean, I think if anybody is committed and does the work and actually tries and puts forth the effort, there's no way not to see huge dividends. I mean, impossible not to. And not just with sex, but in all areas of your life. So, like I said, I tell her all the time, like, that I love you. You've done, like, so much, like, for our relationship and just, like, for me personally. So anyway, just not being afraid to try new things and just, trust the process. Don't rush the process. I say this a lot with sports, but don't rush the process. Trust the process.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, basically, if you want your wife to be obsessed with you, then do the things. Listen to the things. Because, I mean, it's seriously, like, it's almost ridiculous that, like, I can't be in the same room as him without, like, feeling, like, the stir in, like, my gut and being, like, just, like, excited, like, overwhelming excited to, like, talk to him and be around him and think about him. And, like, we've been together 7 years. We have 3 kids. There's plenty of things that have happened, but it's, like, I don't know. It's still like all of, like, this excitement and this overwhelming, like, in loveness. And I was talking to a friend of mine who did all of your courses last year too. And, we were talking about that and, like, being in that state. And she was like, it's crazy. She's like, because, a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people, especially, like, a lot of married people, like, they don't have that, I don't know, almost like infatuation with each other and, like, that overwhelming feeling and stuff like that. And it's sad, it's a shame. And, whatever, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's going to work.
That was my thing. It was like, we'll take a class on maybe trying to improve and have more sex. Like, what could go wrong?
I know. I don't get it. Like, when people have resistance, I'm like, how could you? Like, we're going to take a class in how to have more ecstasy in our lives. What,
It seemed like little risk.
Little risk, big reward.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I love you guys, and thank you so much for opening up and sharing your journey with people to be an inspiration and beacon, and your energy says it all, right? Like the way you talk about it and stories that you share, and it's such a wonderful example for people to aspire to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, and thanks for everything.
The Coming Together Salon is now open for registration. This was the program that really kicked Alexis and Mitchell's relationship into high gear and kept it there. They refer to it throughout the interview as CCT. In the salon, we explore everything they talked about, from tantric and Taoist sexual practices for multiple and full body orgasms, how to create a conscious alchemical relationship, G-spots for him and her, building stamina for men, radical honesty and open communication as foreplay, the art of the 3-hour sex date, creating polarity with your archetypal masculine and feminine energies, and much, much more. You can sign up today at kimanami.com. Look for Sexual Savant Salons and then click on Coming Together for Couples. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe and also leave a review. And send someone else the gift of a healthy libido and an off-the-charts love life by sharing this episode with them. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, many happy orgasms.